Leadenhall office building, which is the tallest building in the city of London, is again a different animal. First of all, it's an office building, and that's, as I mentioned, tends to be very boring. One of the arts of architecture is not only to humanize it, as I mentioned, but also how to use the constraints and in a way turn them upside down and see whether you can help you to design the building. The main constraint on Leadenhall was this. It was a view to St. Paul's. Now, London is unique in being partly controlled by views. So you have these big cuts, and you have to leave certain views open to St. Paul's, and we were on one of those views. The only way to build a tall building was to slope out of that. Now, you could step out of it, you could cut it shorter, and so on. So we made use of this, and we cut it back, the cheese grater is now called, at an angle. And that gives it that very prominent section and profile from all over London. We also had a client, again, which we got on very well, British Land, who were willing to have a 7-story atrium, though it's not enclosed, so probably it could call it a 7-story public space, below the building. The building itself expresses its system of construction, because again, we celebrate construction, because it's one of the things in which we get scale. And scale is a critical part. I mean, architecture is about scale, it is about rhythm, it is about poetry, it's about geometry, it's obviously about beauty. These are all these elements. And scale, which is really the size of the hand on whatever you do, is how you recognize size as well as light, part of light and shadow. Height and length has limited use. You can make a building look immensely large and overbearing, which is basically what single story, or you can make a building which is very light, which means Van der Rohe did, and it's got 50 stories. So how you break it down into the scale is critical. What's interesting for me in Leadenhall is that whereas we thought Lloyd's was the absolute ultimate in the art of technology, when I look at it now, it's handmade practically. Now, we had pieces taken by truck, off-site and so on. Leadenhall was all built off-site. I mean, it arrives completely. The structure is less visible because in a sense it's less important. We're more used to it. The shape is very important. The public space is very important. You can see the wonderful banks of elevators on the backside. So the elements which we have got to know well, we are using there. We're using a lot of, obviously, flexibility. So we're using that, but in a way which more or less 40 years later than probably, which is very much machine-made. So what the next one will probably be even more, well, will be more, even more. And it's very exciting to see that dialogue between these two. And actually, I think it's really exciting to see the dialogue between Lloyd's of London, Leadenhall, and of course the Dome of St. Paul's in the background of a totally different period. To me, that's what architecture is about. It's not about fitting it in as the last building. It's setting up these dialogues. You know, the enjoyment of St. Paul's was that it was seen against a medieval, very low and rather poor medieval background. That was flourished, exactly the same, any form of architecture. So it's a dialogue, it's a beauty that comes through contrast.